Again, something funny about GB News is that they have a membership program. £5, £10 or £20 a month will gain you access to exclusive content like behind the scenes clips or interviews. Now, the people at GB News obviously understand the concept of charging a premium in order to get access to something. But they haven't explained this concept to their journalists and some of their guests. Now, Mark Francois, a member of the Brexit Spartan group, appeared on GB News to complain about sovereignty. Have a listen to this.
Mark, am I missing something? I thought we left the EU and we stopped giving Brussels dosh and we stopped dancing to their whip. Here we go again. It's Groundhog Day.
Well,
okay, before we continue, this guy used to be a member of the Brexit Party. He was an MEP in the Brexit Party. So he doesn't seem to understand that because the UK left, in order to access certain programs, for example, the Horizon program, you need to pay. In the same way as if I want access to exclusive content on GB News, I have to pay. Why is this so difficult for Brexiteers?
You were right in the three things that you just said, but then Sir Keir Starmer became Prime Minister. And what he's doing here, this is all about trying to rejoin the EU by stealth. Not in one go, not with a referendum, not with a big clear-cut decision, but by grandmother's footsteps. And you quite rightly mentioned he's making us a rule taker in certain areas. It's a process called dynamic alignment.
Okay, before we continue, the UK is a rule taker at the moment. If you want to sell goods into the single market, you have to follow the rules. If you want to access programs like the Horizon program, you need to follow the rules. Like, if the UK is outside the bloc, it's no longer writing the rules in order to access that bloc. Why is this so difficult for Mark Francois? Why didn't he explain this to voters back in 2016? Why isn't he explaining this to people today? We left, so we became a rule taker, not a rule maker. When the UK was in the European Union, it was a rule maker. Now it's a rule taker. They're trying to sell this idea that suddenly it has become a rule taker because of Keir Starmer, which is completely untrue.
In pub English, what it means is if once you agree to be bound in those areas, once they move, you have to follow them, regardless.
Once they increase standards, you have to follow them. It's not about moving, it's about increasing standards.
Of what Parliament thinks. So you're giving away in certain areas sovereignty bit by bit. Parliament used to have a committee called the European Scrutiny Committee. Their role, chaired by the inimitable Sybil Cash, was to be a watchdog for anything like this, anything that came from the EU. They went through it with a fine tooth comb. What did Labour do? Quite cynically, about 6 months ago, they abolished it. And they must have...
Yes, because the UK is no longer a member of the European Union. Like, what's wrong with Mark Francois? You had this... It wasn't a European Scrutiny Committee. It was called that. It was a Brexiteer talking shop. It was Brexiteer after Brexiteer complaining about the European Union. That was it. Or suggesting that Brexit was being betrayed. It was a bunch of Brexiteers complaining. And what purpose did it serve? Pretty much no purpose. So, of course, the new government got rid of it because it was a bunch of Brexiteers complaining all the time. What was the purpose of it? Waste of time and effort. So, what they want to do is they want to bring it back. But what is the point of the European Scrutiny Committee if the UK is not a member of the European Union?
Known. They must have had this in mind when they were doing it.
Well,
utterly cynical.
I'll tell you what, Chris Hope, haven't you said a phone call from a certain Mr. Bill?
Yes, Bill Cash on the phone earlier
on the phone
about the removal of his committee, the European Scrutiny Committee, saying it needs to come back. But surely...
Well, actually, if I may, he's got a point. He should now.
Yeah, because it did in the old days scrutinise any EU legislation.
Correct, that was the whole point.
Isn't the point, though, that the Labour Party won the election in July, saying they're going to reshape our relationship with the European Union? They won't do their kind of triple lock, if you call it that, on Brexit, freedom of movement, single market, or customs union. But they are doing what they said they'd do. And isn't it the point about sovereignty that if this country votes in a party that says it'll do that, they can do it? And if you guys get in the next election on a different prospectus, you can withdraw from that. That's the...
Yeah, exactly, Chris Hope. And Chris Hope is completely correct here. You know, the Labour Party won a manifesto to do a reset with the European Union. You know, the Brexiteers constantly bang on about sovereignty and respecting the vote. But as soon as it goes away that they don't like, they're like, oh, no, you're betraying Brexit.
The point of sovereignty, isn't it?
Well, because I understand the concept of having a mandate in a manifesto, but it said reset. It was deliberately that. It didn't say dynamic alignment. It didn't say...
It didn't go through all the different aspects. Like, most people don't even read the manifesto, okay? But that's not an argument against, whatever's contained within it. But you can't put everything into the manifesto. You can't put every aspect of legislation into the manifesto. But dynamic alignment is actually going to help British businesses. See, what is the argument against dynamic alignment? Sovereignty. That's all the Brexiteers have. Sovereignty. We're against dynamic alignment because sovereignty. Well, go to businesses who are struggling to export into the single market. Go to scientists and universities who'd like access to European science projects and programs and explain to them the benefit of sovereignty and why it's better to not be part of these and instead have sovereignty.
If we become the government, we will vote, despite the referendum, to go back to being a rule taker. It didn't say we'll surrender a lot.
The UK is a rule taker. It was a rule taker when your party was in charge. He doesn't understand what rule taking is.
Large part of our fishing rights for 12 years, right? For virtually nothing in return. If it had said rule taker, then fair enough, but it didn't. So what he's trying...
Why would he put in, we will become a rule taker in the manifesto if the UK is already a rule taker?
To do bit by bit is to take us back in. So it looks as if we'll be paying millions, not billions at this stage, but they've established the principle. One, that we become a rule taker from the EU, and two, that we start paying into the EU budget. So as I said, it's all grandmother's footsteps, and the watchdog in Parliament deliberately shot.
Yes, the watchdog, the Brexiteer talking shop. Once again, go and have a look at the video. You can find them on the Parliamentary TV website. Just Brexiteers complaining about the European Union, Brexiteers complaining about Brexit betrayal, Brexiteer after Brexiteer talking absolute nonsense. It was not about scrutinizing the European Union, it was about complaining. And that's all Brexiteers have left, to complain. Now, thankfully, it's going to be some time before the Conservatives get back into power. And I think what we're going to see over the next number of years is maybe a change within the Conservative Party, a softening of approach to Brexit, in the sense that they understand that, look, Brexit is gone. There's nothing we can do about it. The UK is heading in a direction of rejoining the European Union at some stage, or at least having a better relationship. And it's going to be difficult for Tories in the future to sell the idea that we should tear up everything. They're trying to do it now. Kemi Badenoch was talking about tearing up agreements, but we're far away from the general election. And I think by the time that happens, the relationship with Europe will be much better. And there won't be really an incentive for anyone to tear up agreements. Even Nigel Farage. I think even Farage at that stage will understand that we need to have a good relationship. He will, of course, sell the idea that Brexit was being betrayed or whatever. But I think at that stage, even Nigel Farage will say, yeah, well, we need to have a good relationship. We're not going to start creating disruption. Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.